Elven lands. And we're avoiding any major issues thus far. So good on ya.
Yay!
We'll see if that keeps up.
Quiet rejoicing.
So, where we last left off, you guys had spent a day trekking through the backlands, through the mountain ranges in the Elven lands. Mostly without issue, a couple hiccups here and there, but you guys were able to pull each other through it. And you ended the session camping out in a series of mountain ranges after having avoided a potential ambush site. Where a number of demons were having a little silver order snack, but you managed to backtrack around that without tripping into them, and rested up for the night because it sounded like you were only about maybe a half day away from the destination you guys were currently trekking towards. So, be sure to reset your HP, spell slots, hero points, all that good nonsense. And does anybody have any questions for me before we get started?
It's still showing my dex as 25. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct. Because I think
It is not.
okay, because I'm like, this should be at 23.
Yeah, just adjust that down to 23.
It won't let me. Or maybe it will. No,
There you
it autos it
go.
back to 25.
There we go.
There we go.
Wait. Yep. Okay. Cool. Man, why do you do these things? You cause me so many problems. All right. For some reason it kept resetting it for you, but I was able
No.
to lock it in.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? All right. All right. Let me reset the good boy's HP because I forgot to do that last time. And how long does this last? Okay, I'll remember that. So, you guys pick up in the morning. Theoden seems to be maintaining. Thalen seems to be maintaining the storm overhead that is masking all y'all's movements for the time being. So Ethos isn't being sussy wussy quite yet, at least as far as you're aware. Um, but that does make travel a bit difficult, so they recommend heading out as soon as you guys are ready and have some basic breakfast in your bellies.
Alright.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're not. Let's see here. We were camped reasonably near the watch trees near the Kellum's place, weren't we? Is that where we're headed at least?
Yep, it's a couple hours out from here, but you are relatively close. We should start seeing it soon enough, even through the storm. I imagine we'll be able to get a rough idea of where it is. All right. So, last time I remember, I believe it was Reeves was doing a little bit of sneaky sneaky.
Mhm.
Tomas, you were either on lookout or survival duty.
I think I was survival duty.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And Meek, I believe you were on perception duty.
Yeah. Perception. Rear guarding duty.
All right. That being the case, I need a stealth from Reeves, a nature or a survival from Tomas, and a perception from Mika.
I get another action, don't I?
Yes, you are free to use your other action for what I... Oh, we're starting today real strong.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Look
yeah.
at them twos.
Yep. At least Reeves is doing pretty well.
At least we're quiet.
Uh-huh.
Exploration 2E. see.
Or Reeves had something with the sneakiness that lets you do a couple different bits.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
sneaks as a free exploration action.
That's right. That's right. Meeky was trying to help cover tracks and stuff.
Okay, in that case, being a little more comfortable in the environment now, I think Reeves will try to um scout ahead a bit.
All right, give me a perception check as you go. There
Oh,
we
yeah.
go. All right. So, how are you doing on your rolls, Kellum? Okay. So, you guys are trudging along a bit. It's hard to make much out of anything through the not only the heavy storm but the early morning darkness in it. So it's near pitch black as you guys are just hammered by like almost beating rain. Your skin is still a little sore from having it pour down upon you for hours yesterday, and waking up to it probably isn't the greatest sensation in the world. Um, but you keep trudging along. Um, Nobody is noticing really anything out of place. You're trying to keep your bearings as much as you can, Tomas, but it isn't the easiest. If you weren't so familiar with the Elven lands, you probably would have gotten lost by now, given the conditions you're in. But you're heading at least in the right direction, you feel like. Um, and after about an hour, 2 hours, as the light probably starts to crest in the distance, and you don't see the sunrise, but you do see a little bit of light starting to break through the clouds just a little bit. Um, and nobody else notices it quite yet, but Reeves, as you're on lookout ahead of the group, just through the gaps in the trees, you think you get an idea of where your destination is. It's hard to judge the distance from here, but considering the almost monolithic structure that breaks from the tree line in the distance, you have a good idea that this is what you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
That's not small.
Like during this whole journey, Reeves was thinking, okay, we're looking for a specific tree in this whole gosh dang forest. How how will we know what it looks like? And then he lays his eyes on this, like, oh,
Trees from the beginning of time.
They can. Meek is like they can do that.
Yeah. Are you pointing out the tree to the others when you see it, Reeves?
yes. It's like, I think I found it.
So you got it takes a little bit for your eyes to focus on it properly, but in the distance you can see the faintest little dots of light illuminating this absolutely massive structure breaking from the tree line, and almost seems like the top of the tree. You're not even sure if you're seeing all of it. It almost seems like part of it is engulfed by the very clouds that are raining down upon you. And in response to your question, Cullen goes, "Aye, there's not many of them, but those are the watchwood."
You know, I was expecting like an encampment around a pretty sizable tree. I wasn't expecting this.
No, and I don't think it's very easy to grasp the size of it from here. If you ever start wondering if you're seeing things carved into the side of the tree as you get close, that'll be the city.
Oh, there's a whole city.
Yeah, they're basically fortresses of their own right. The
These guys just
Druids have been weaving fortifications into them for centuries now.
Okay. This flips everything on its head. How do we get in?
Well, there's the obvious methods, and then there's the recommended methods.
Let's go with the latter.
So, as you would imagine, walking through the front door probably not the best idea.
I wouldn't recommend that either.
Good, then we're on the same page there at least. The lower levels of the trees themselves are probably amongst the most fortified. Most of the barracks and defenses are located around the lower levels. It'll be hard to approach the tree in general, but breaking through the front gates and up through the barracks isn't exactly going to be a fun time if they don't want us there. But given the size of what we are dealing with, the front door isn't necessarily the only way inside if you're willing to put in a bit of effort.
Well, as long as there's not like a sheet of lead built built into the walls, I can think of a few.
He kind of just cocks his head a bit at that.
Oh, it's a precaution. Some might weave into their walls to stop handy things like a pass wall and other things like that.
Not entirely sure what defenses they have in place on the lower levels, at least. I wouldn't imagine we're going to be able to punch into any of the more fortified area, but these trees are pretty massive. I can't imagine them having that kind of protection over all of it.
Mm.
Mind you, there are sections of the tree, mostly towards the base, where the tree is at points tens of feet thick before you start getting into any of the insides.
I see.
How far in can you go?
Um, do my spells carry over? No, I'll look on my other sheet.
Oh, whoops, I forgot to move those over, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. I sometimes forget I have it too. Um, only about 10 feet. But I can't imagine their contingency is um enough to cover all of all of the tree.
Now, we might be able to get lucky with some of the less fortified sections towards the middle of it, but getting up there isn't exactly going to be a great time.
I can go about 30 feet through dirt and stone, but higher up, that's probably not going to be something we're going to run into a lot, so.
No, they hauled some earth and stone up towards the upper levels, but most of it itself is just wood, unsurprisingly. Shaped by the tree singers, but wood all the same.
Well, use some fretting about it right now. I know I need a closer look to spotting the gaps in their scouting formation or their guard formation.
Yeah, we can we'll probably get a bit closer to see what we're working with here. If Chet's numbers are accurate, they won't be manning most of it, but still want to get an idea of the best routes for approach. I have a couple in mind, but a few of the more well-beaten paths are going to be more eyes on them. All right. So you guys continuing to push forward, or do you have any other questions?
I'm
Pushing forward.
All right. So you guys are able to continue on for another 2 hours as you realize you're beginning to understand the absolute scale of this fucking thing. As you seem to travel for minutes without it seeming to get any closer. And after a great deal of work, and as you get warnings that you're starting to get closer to the perimeter of the city and the trails around it, you are all called to a stop again as you can get a little bit of a better look now. Previously, you would have only been able to really see like the upper levels here and only like the vague silhouette. But now, as the sun has risen a bit more and there's just the tiniest amount of silhouetting of all of the features, like light punching through the cloud top. Um, Not like God rays shooting through the sky, but just like light bleeding through the clouds. You can make out the massive structure of branches that break from around the top to form a huge canopy that is partially engulfed by the clouds themselves at the very top. And within the upper levels of the structure, you see what appears to be a large series of buildings. Maybe carved out of wood or stone. It's hard to see for certain. Um, there are a few large structures up at the top and carved into the sides of the tree, arcing down in spirals. You see windows and awnings and balconies, and it almost seems like the entire tree from the outside has been hollowed out to exist as some sort of living city. It doesn't look like the tree is damaged or dying. In fact, it looks like just blooming with verdant growth. Uh, the lower levels that you can see from here, the massive stone and wood fortifications seem to be almost intertwined with the forest around them. Um, Large trees and moss and even the creatures of the forest seem to blend in with the structures themselves. Some of the upper level windows where you can see no light or movement, you see like the vague silhouettes of animals or glowing eyes looking back at you from some of the closest structures. And you can see the sprawling complex of the city at its feet, expanding out in every direction. Um, it seems like the tree is pushing on the northern edge of the city walls itself, um, with a large set of fortifications and manors wrapping around it and towards the south. And then lower laying structures heading downhill as a river cuts around the tree and through the city. Here we are. Bit bigger than you were expecting, I take it.
I think that's an understatement.
Nika's just kind of standing there, just jaw.
Lass is just watching the two of them with a grin on his face.
How the fuck does a tree get to be the size of a mountain?
By being old, I imagine.
By being a remnant of the first world. There aren't many traces of the Feywild left in the material plane, but this is one of them.
He said there's several others like this.
Yeah, you might even be able to see one or two of them from the top, but they're pretty spread out.
Goodness.
I'm aware of maybe half a dozen of them. There might be a few more.
Well, I heard I've heard of elves being able to live sort of in complete harmony with nature, and this seems to be a good testament to that.
When you sing in love to the forest, it gives you a home. Sings and loves back.
Mm. All right. Can I make like what sort of check do I need to make to sort of do like an analysis of like where where of where most likely there are to be sort of like sentries posted to cover as much vision as possible.
If you want to see what you can see, that would be a perception check. If you want to take a look at the surrounding area and get an idea of where you would think to place sentries, give me a warfare check.
I will do that.
Don't suppose anybody's got easy way to get wings, do they?
Well, I have a method. It's just for me though.
Unless Maya's learned to fly, I gotta say no.
Zumir, um, you see Zumir think about it for a moment and says, I prepared one way, but if we use it now, we probably won't be able to use it to get back. If we use it now, we probably won't be able to use it to get back down.
What is that one way?
Oh, I prepared a spell that lets me shapeshift into any number of creatures. I was thinking maybe turning into a large bird so I could carry people up or down if needed.
Gotcha.
Um. Oh, go ahead.
Better
I was
escape plan, but
this entire time Kapak just shoved his roots in the ground and is quietly like rocking back and forth singing at the tree.
Mm-hmm. Kapak, roll me a either perception or a nature check.
Oh, I'm good today, man.
Uh, you just sway with the rhythm of the tree for a moment, enjoying the company of something even more ancient than you, which is very rare in your position.
Zoomy,
Mm-hmm.
do you think this is my real mom?
He just pauses and looks at the tree for a moment until you hear Phelan go, "It is not."
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, so the check that you made, Reeves. So, looking it over, um, you get an idea from where you're looking of a few places where you would put sentries. The problem is You'd probably need about 1,000 to cover all the locations you're thinking of.
Right.
So you're trying to cut out a lot of the redundancies, given the enemies that they would be expecting to face from this position, seeing as they came here to deal with demons, um, which are mainly either large hulking brutes or, in the cases of exceptionally powerful ones, flying monstrosities. You figure they're probably fortifying most of their defenses around the lower levels where they can intercept the terrestrials, and around the upper levels where they can catch the signs of anything flying in and either weaken it or eliminate it before it arrives. So you get the idea that an aerial approach would probably be exceptionally dangerous unless done with a lot of care and perhaps magical support.
Mm-hmm. Reeves will sort of relay that to the group. So, I mean, there is cloud cover up there. So, Phelan, unless you can do something with that to mask our approach, if we were to take up Zumir's offer. But if there's a way that we can sort of puncture, see, the problem is we need to at least get either just over the wall and try to get somewhere amongst the trunk to puncture in, because the trunk between the top and the roots is probably not being monitored that closely.
No, and there's a couple structures that have outward facing entrances, as you can see. Most of them will probably be locked up tight, but I think we can find a way in if we're able to get to one of them. And let's just say from experience, it's not impossible to get pretty far up there without going in the front door.
I'll take your word for it.
It's not going to be fun in this, but we might be able to manage a climb.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that, but
What's a few thousand feet in the pouring rain?
misery. That's what that
That's
is.
a lot.
Potential death.
He just kind of shrugs at that.
Well, we would only need to climb up high enough to find a way to slip inside.
Yeah, the biggest gap is going to be from the bottom to the lowest levels past the barracks. Maybe a few 100 feet up. Depending on where we approach from, I can give you a better idea.
Mm. Right. Well, we're here, so see if we can circle around the perimeter, get a better idea of what our entrance options are.
And, excuse me, you see Callum smirk a bit at that and look towards Tret, who just nods a bit. I can save you a little bit of time on that.
Please do.
We've already scouted out the perimeter with Callum's instructions. It looks like there's a few main ways that we could try to get close to the base of the tree. Each of them has their own complications.
Well,
The journey thus far has been difficult but not impossible with our current skill sets. As we get closer to the tree itself, the terrain takes on a bit more of a mind of its own. Some bleed over, as I understand it, from the First World. The approach from the north will give us the most cover from observing eyes and keep us away from most of the patrols, but it is hard going terrain. It could be hard packed earth one second and drowning mires the next, with vines trying to pull you down under the surface. Often it's full of brambles or other impeding terrain that'll make passage through extraordinarily difficult, but it minimizes our chances of running into any patrols from what I've seen. They don't like to send men there. Figure the natural defenses will keep things out most likely.
Well, that that's what I would do. So can't blame them there.
If we come in from the south, it's a bit more protected from the environment, but we do run into the issues of potentially running into scouts. The city is patrolled, not exceptionally heavily, but there is a presence moving about, and I haven't been able to spot any patterns to the patrol, at least before I had to meet back up with you. There's a few routes we can take through, but our best bets are one of two options that I saw. There's a few routes that we could adjust on the fly if need be, but mainly our options are to cut through the city towards the main entrance and then make a diversion at the last second to get around the side of the fortifications. It's the most dangerous route in the terms of being spotted, but it would bring us the closest to the fortifications themselves, meaning that it won't be as difficult to make the climb once we get there if we're able to avoid being spotted. There is another route around the city that'll take us around the far side of the tree, towards the west. Less eyes there, but the terrain is rougher, and that is unfortunately the farthest part of the climb, given how the city spirals upwards within the Watchwood itself. None of them are particularly easy approaches, but depending on your skill set, I imagine one will be easier than the others.
Hmm. Um, the first the first path you mentioned, how much of a climb would it be once we got to the base?
It's not as bad as heading in from the west. We'd probably be able to make contact pretty safely with the northeastern portion of the tree, which would only add a few hundred feet instead of maybe close to 1,000 on the west.
My vote's for option one. Reeves looks over towards Tomas. I I I trust our guides. I trust the guides in this group to get us there safely.
You can get us there. I'll take your advice for infiltrating. It's not really my forte.
You get us there, I can handle the rest.
Sounds good.
Thoughts, Mika?
I'll go with what you guys want to do on this, cause I'll climb wherever you want me to climb, but this is not my habitat in the slightest.
All right.
Yeah, our primary goal is to take out the officers and minimum slipping in unseen to make sure that happens is our top priority.
All right. I'll take us towards the closest entrance I spotted through. We might have to do a bit of adjustment depending on the current state of the terrain, but we'll do our best to get us there. And Tret starts heading you off in that direction. So, we're going to be going with the First World Forest approach. This next part is gonna be a fun little. Sorry, we'll call it an infiltration. So, just to get you guys in the proper mindset, I'm going to describe things as they happen. This isn't using exploration rules anymore. Um, as you run into issues, potential hindrances, anything you think could give you an advantage as you guys are moving through this part, feel free to ask me if you are able to attempt certain actions. There are points where I will ask you to give me how you want to respond, but otherwise, if there are any pauses when I'm speaking and you have an idea, feel free to speak up and ask a question. All right.
All right.
So, it takes about 15 minutes for Tret to start bringing you towards the entrance of the Wildwood, or the First Wood, the First World Forest, as he had previously referred to it as. Um, Tomas, you've heard of places like this before. Give me a nature check to see how much you remember.
Mhm.
Perfect. So, Uh, the first worlds, or the Feywild, as it is more commonly known in non-elven tongues, is a mirror of the material plane. Some say it is the first attempt at creating the world, but there was an imbalance. It is a place both created by and shaped by today. Sorry. It is both shaped by and shapes the emotions of those that dwell within it. It is a extraordinarily beautiful and dangerous place. Unsurprisingly, Fae live there. You've met the Fae, great people. You know
Okay.
one of them, pretty cool guy. Apparently, the most chill Fae. So that tells you what you need to know.
Yeah.
So as you approach, and even through the downpour of rain, you guys are taken a bit aback by almost the kaleidoscopic array of colors you see splayed out in front of you. Um, Trees that have almost prismatic sheens to the leaves, white wood, almost like birch-like white trees. Some that are the bark is dyed a deep fluorescent blues and pinks and greens. All sorts of beautiful flowers and fruits hang ever so gently from the limbs of the trees as they display out in this vibrant kaleidoscopic pattern that splays out before you. Uh, and it's a very unusual scene as you just kind of look back like over your shoulder and just see normal ass trees splayed out in every direction, and just as you turn your attention back towards what is before you, it feels like almost everything has shifted since you looked at it. All the colors and all the individual pieces are there, but the actual contents seem ever so slightly different, and you notice things shifting just on the edge of your perception as the wind blows and the branches rustle and sway and move down, and objects behind them have changed, either moving or shifting in color or disappearing entirely. You get the sensation that this is a very unusual place.
Is Balin walking along with us? Or is he...
Yep,
Okay.
he just seems to let out a heavy sigh at the sight of it.
Nika just kind of leans over to him at some point. It's like, Lot, don't do anything by half, do ya?
This isn't my responsibility. Unfortunately, there is a bit of bleed over here.
Kapok's gonna reach up and tug at the bottom of um Phelan's shirt. Like,
Hmm.
Phelan,
Yes.
can we visit the first world?
You are more than welcome to once the situation has been resolved here.
Can I take Sumi with me?
That is entirely his decision, if he wishes to embark on such a dangerous journey with you.
I think it'd be okay. It's safer there than here.
You have a strange definition of safe, Kapok.
At least there you know it's gonna kill you.
Everything.
Yeah. And he'll just waddle away.
Do not go too far, Kapok. You are not immune to the effects of this place.
Oh, okay. He'll waddle a little slower.
Yep. So, as you get a forbidding sense from this place, are you locked into the decision you've made?
Reeves looks to Mika and Tomas. I have some regrets, but
I don't know it's gonna be any better on the other side.
this is fair.
Last time I saw a Fae, I shot one of their gods, so you know, what can get worse than that?
Phelan's head snaps to stare at you.
You
Tomas
hadn't heard
just
about this yet?
You what?
he threatened my boyfriend, so I shot him.
Which one?
Stag Prince.
You see him pinch the bridge of his nose.
I'm surprised you haven't heard about it, considering he tends to brag about it every chance he gets.
Well,
Do you think Tomas talks to me?
I don't know.
no, absolutely not. I talked to Kiro.
Oh, well. I'm surprised you didn't hear via the grapevine that is Keyroll.
We've been busy.
Mm-hmm. Um,
What was the
I,
name of the flower that the Stag Prince gave him?
A blood lotus.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
so he's like, I shot him and he gave me a blood lotus, so it can't have been that bad.
You must have delivered him quite the boon.
Hmm.
It said only one blood lotus blooms a year. You must have made quite the impression for him to leave it in your possession. Treasure it carefully.
Tomas will give Phelan a sad smile. He'll be like, seeing as though I searched for it once before, I know the weight of it.
And his eyes go soft for a second, and he just nods at that and turns his attention back towards what is before you guys.
well, like Mika said, the other routes are probably going to be no less perilous, just for different reasons. Okay. Let's hope this goes well.
Trent seems to let out a heavy sigh. Yes, we haven't trekked through it before. Just observed it from the outside, so be extremely careful. Phelan speaks up a bit. I won't be able to offer much assistance once we're in there, but do follow the basic rules. If somebody tries to talk to you, don't give them your name, don't give them any attention. Pretend they don't exist, and don't listen to anything they say.
Kind of wondering how the Silver Order is managing dealing alongside that.
We're not going into it, probably.
Kellum, ding ding ding.
Um, okay. Should we come up with a passcode just in case someone tries to mimic one of us?
It's worth a shot. Assuming they can't read minds.
team itself.
Bark! Tupac waves his wand.
You know what? Bark works.
I'm okay with that.
I suppose that works. All right. Well, if we're going to get ourselves killed, now's as good a time as any.
Huzzah!
Bring on the
Wee. So, all right. And thus you begin traveling through the fun little forest. So, you guys are hit by an aroma of sweet spring flowers, delicate fruits, the fresh morning air. It's all very pleasant. It almost makes you forget that you're in the middle of a torrential rainstorm. There's a light to this place. Everything seems to almost glow faintly, some brighter than others, but everything has a warmth, a radiance to it that is almost contagious. It fills your chest with warmth and excitement. And as you travel through it longer and longer, trying to follow Tret's guide as he keeps an eye on the watchwood, I would like all of you to make me will saving throws.
Oh, oops. Add 2 to that.
Okay. Alright, let me take something out real quick. Okay. Where was that funny little chart? Oh, god damn it. Oh, random tables are the best. There we go. Yeah, buddy?
Yeah. I'm staring at Kapak's proficiency list and it's really fucking funny.
Alright, let's take a look at the funny little chart. Okay. Uh, and let me pull up character sheets. All right. So, as you are going through, uh, Reeves and Tomas, um, you can't help but feel this is probably like the best you've felt since you departed on the mission itself. The warmth and the radiance and the excitement of this place is contagious. As Mika, you notice the others pick up a bit of like a pep in their step, a little bit of sway, and you see uh, Reeves kind of bobbing his head back and forth as he walks, almost as if stepping to a tune, and Tomas just starts almost subconsciously whistling something under his breath for a moment until he realizes it and quiets down as you guys are in the middle of a sneaking mission. And Kpak. Um, earlier you were trying to sing to the big tree, and it wasn't responding.
Mhm.
But here, it seems like maybe you're a little bit closer to home. Maybe the big tree just couldn't hear you because his ears are so high up in the sky, but these ones are so much closer. And you hear your song echoed back to you. And almost a symphony, a cacophony of happy little trees singing around you as you step. Just giving you a funny little chorus as you pass through. Makes you really feel at home.
Puck's gonna start quietly singing under his breath again.
So, you guys are enjoying your little passage through the Feywild. For a while, it seems like you aren't really running into that many problems. The scenery seems to shift around you. As you go prepare to take a corner, suddenly you'll turn and there'll just be a small rock wall in front of you, and you have to adjust around it. Bodies of water appear where there were none. Rivers dry up as you approach. You step down, and your foot sinks through the solid ground into the muck beneath. It's tedious, but not exceptionally dangerous. For a bit. Um, as you guys are traveling through, uh, what is the order in which you are marching?
Reeves would be towards the front. I don't necessarily know if he would be first in line.
Tomas might if he's trying to like guide them through.
Yeah, I think it would have maintained the rear guard spot for lack of any other
Mhm.
change.
Yeah, Reeves would be behind Tomas then.
All right. So, we'll start with Tomas at the front then. So, as you're leading them through, you're starting to round the corner towards what you think might be roughly the halfway point. As you've made a good way of cutting around the edge of the city, and now that you've bypassed the defenses that Tret was aware of, you're going to start slowly cutting in towards it. That way, you're out of their view and are able to hop the wall where nobody should be looking. Um, and all that's going relatively well as you just kind of quietly, the hum returns to you under your breath as you're approaching and trying to get a feel for things. And Reeves, you're the first one to catch it as you see him put his foot down, but it kind of starts sinking into the earth a little bit. Um, Not as if he hit mud, but as if his foot hit nothing. You see it kind of just slip underneath the surface for a second as water pools up around the edge of the grass. And Tomas, give me a reflex saving throw as you feel no weight underneath your foot as you shift your weight forward. So Tomas and Tomas, as you step forward, you try to catch yourself and shift your weight back, but the ground underneath your foot gives, and you're in free fall for a second as you fall into the marsh underneath your feet. It looks like there's a thin layer of almost grass like moss on the top surface, and you were just treading towards the edge of where this water hits the ground like meets up against the edge of whatever body of water that you're just passing over just now. Um, and you feel your entire body submerge in this warm, as your nose gets close to it, pretty fetid water.
Yeah.
And you slip under the surface for a second before you crawl back up, and Reeves, you see him pop back up to the surface and gasp for breath as he catches himself on the lake and coughs up water for a bit. And as you pull yourself together and try to focus and begin getting ready to pull yourself out of the water, you feel something brush by your leg. Something big.
Can I pull myself up faster?
So,
How close is Tomas to Reeves?
uh, if you guys are following at a decent distance, so you're not all clustered up, maybe 30 feet.
Okay. So Tomas is like in a depression on the ground, right?
It looks like. Have you ever seen those types of marshes where it looks like there's solid ground, but it's just like
It's a bog.
it's a bog?
Okay.
It's
I see. All right. So does Tomas look panicked right now?
I
he
know,
looks
Tomas.
very, very much wants out of the water in that moment.
All right. Reeves is like, I got you, buddy, and does this.
Good, I like that. So I do not need a save from you, Tomas, as uh, you feel your stomach lurch a little bit, but suddenly you're sitting on dry land, a bit from the water's edge, um, next to Reeves, which is really good as you get your bearings for a second and look around, and you see a massive snake-like head breach the surface of the water and come down on where you were just moments ago. And the trail follows. The thing has to be 20, 30, maybe 50 feet of the most gorgeous prismatic scales slithering underneath the surface like a little rainbow.
Don't like that.
The fuck
Yes,
you
it's
say?
not. Oh God.
God damn it.
Um,
Everybody roll me a perception check. Kabak's having a good time, having his little sing song in the back. Uh, the rest of you look around after that, um, and you see all around you the ripple. It almost seems like the surface of the grass is rippling. Not just
and
ahead of you, but it almost looks like you're basically standing on stepping stones that have been passing through the middle of a huge body of water.
okay.
And you
Can
see none that are solid to get you to the other side.
okay. Can you let me know if this would stabilize our path?
Uh, so, with your perception check, let me check the DC. You see a few areas that look like they might have a little bit. They might not be pure liquid. Like there might be a couple sections of the water heading to the other side that are uh, either more shallow or tiny little remnants of earth, like the pieces you've been standing on.
Hmm.
Those, it would certainly give you a bonus
Okay.
if you tried to make the crossing that way.
Um, with or without the spell?
With the spell, you could try to make it across regardless. Safe passage would make sure that any of those stepping stones, we'll call them, little passages of earth, none of them like crumbled underneath your weight as people were passing over them. Anything
Um,
like that.
mhm. Can you judge how far it is? Just trying to figure out if I'm going to spend a 5th level spell slot or not.
Is this a river we're looking at? That's no, the trail across a river that's no longer a trail,
It's
or what are we?
it's a bog.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's
Yeah,
like
you guys. Sorry, go
like
ahead.
like a lake with like a thick layer of moss over
Okay,
it.
so it's just bigger than it looked.
Yeah, you guys
Okay.
thought you were walking over like a grassy area, but like the entire you were just walking through like increasingly narrow portions of land that were basically stepping stones.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yep. How much area does that cover at the current at level 3?
Level 3, it doesn't really say. I was thinking about. 1 second.
I'm looking at my stuff. I've got nothing useful whatsoever for this situation.
Are you telling me the
Nothing
dwarf
except
doesn't like bogs?
yeah, dwarf is highly unfamiliar with bogs, short of chucking somebody to the nearest clump of land, which is probably not in reach. I've got a breath blaster. It's not probably gonna help me all that much with anything. Not gonna. I can't toast some land for you guys.
Now just flash evaporate the water.
Tempting. So it's like they're seeing the snake. She's like, light it on fire.
Unfortunately, it lives in the water.
Yeah, technicalities.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, Reeves is probably gonna pump the 100, the height and 5th level, anyway.
Yeah, from what you can see with your perception check, that area stretches to maybe roughly 100 feet to safe land.
Okay. Well, that will justify the use of it. I think I can make this path a bit safer.
It's still going to be a rush to get there.
Oh, the idea is to once I put my spell down, we're just gonna hoof it.
Scout along the edge for a best place to lay it, or is this as good as it's gonna get?
I already found a spot.
Okay.
Just be careful with your balance. Let me make perception checks real quick. Well, if you have an idea of the path, by all means, lead the way.
All right. Just follow me when I say the word, and Reeves will stand at the edge of the path he's going to make, and um, his hands glow with a brief with a brief glyph as he touches the ground in front of him, and whatever that's and whatever that does to the ground happens.
Yep. You see some of the bits of the pathway ahead through the rumbling water seem to settle a bit. So you get a little bit of a better idea of where the path is. And you focus in your mind to keep the spell sustained to get whatever effort you can out of it. Take a deep breath. And you guys are running across the sections of Earth that Reeves is fortified with safe passage.
Yep. Haul ass behind.
All right. So I need either a nature check to try to spot, to like know the safest way to navigate through this type of terrain and avoid anything, a survival check for roughly the same thing, but with more practical rather than knowledge, an athletics check to haul ass, or an acrobatics check to keep your balance as you are going.
Let's do acrobatics because Reeves has a bunch of stuff for that.
Athletics is my best help.
Hmm. Let me hero point that. Or not. Okay.
Oof. Alright. I will let you keep the old one.
Okay.
Alright. So, let me make one more check on my end. NPCs are fun to roll for me.
What do I have for this? I do have that, if that helps at all.
When they roll success. Alright, and that was a 38 you rolled? Okay.
38, yeah.
Alright. So, let's go in order then. So, Tomas, actually, we'll start with you, Reeb, since Tomas was on his ass when this started. After securing it, you try to follow the route that you saw before, and as you're running along, you're trying to get a good idea. It's hard through all the shifting terrain, especially with this being a funny little place you're not really used to. You make it maybe about 3/4 of the way across, and as you hit one of the sections, most of it's been flat earth underneath your feet, but as your foot hits down on the edge of this small section, you realize it's a smooth, slick stone underneath the surface, and your foot nearly slides off for a second until you feel part of it shift out underneath your feet into a flat ledge that you're just barely able to keep your balance on before you just springboard all your weight off that. And as you look over your shoulder, you see Zumir casting a spell underneath his breath to shift some of the terrain underneath the feet as he is watching your path, trying to make things a bit easier for everybody as they're going across.
Thanks,
And
buddy.
you just barely make it to the other side without falling in. Having seen the path, Tomas, and you haven't worked with these before, but considering your previous experiments in trying to get the Blood Lily, you did encounter this type of terrain once before. And you remember how much it sucks ass as you take your breath in and follow in the path that Reeves made, making sure to keep your balance low and centered as you're making your way across. Um, and you make note of where he slipped and kind of slow down a little bit for that part to make sure you have solid footing as you hit it and are able to hop across to the other side without any issue yourself. All right. Mika with a 39. Um, fuck this place.
Yep.
Once once you see how the others are going, um, you kind of just shift your weight back and forth for a bit before you just start doing a running charge, like the enemy is waiting for you on the other side of this. Um, and you see Mika kind of bulldoze through it a bit. Luckily, this is reinforced for um, the condensed rage that is the dwarf charging down this path as they just hop from section to section. And seeing where they struggled at that point, you're like, I'm not dealing with this. And just with a running like catch your feet on the edge of the last section and just jump clear over it at the end and just skid stop on the far side. And Kapak. Um, Kapak, you're not really sure why these people are worried about the really nice place. As you guys just see Kapak get really big for a second and just slowly walk over all of the sections without having any real issues.
All right.
Would,
Forgot
would
to
he
do
be
that.
able to help? Would he be able to help Zumir across?
Um,
Unless Zumir's already okay.
Zumir is very fine.
Okay.
It's like, oh, it's
Well,
okay.
everybody else just gets left behind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Only offers Zumir help.
Zumir offers to go last as he's like focusing on making the path more secure for people with Reeves' assistance. And Tret has a bit of a struggle, but him and Kellum are able to make it across, both being pretty good survivalists as they are, until as you see the water shifting around a bit as this thing is just lurking, waiting for something else to hit the water. Um, you just see Zumir just cautiously and carefully walk across the path you guys made before, like, leaning down and whispering something into the water, and then just having his little merry step back over towards you guys, rolling his natural 20 on nature.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's fun.
The water seems to still as after he speaks to it for a little bit. Um, and then as you guys walk, you go, huh, maybe it wasn't that dangerous after all. You see a deer drinking from the water in the surface, and just it explodes into a fountain of gore as it's pulled into the water.
Oh, look, I got to have dinner.
Yeah, got to have dinner. I'm just glad it wasn't us.
The circle of life.
Best treeist
Mm,
forest. One of the best treeist forests. Having not a good day.
congratulations. Fun little DC modifiers helped out on that one quite a bit.
Yay!
All everybody Mika's got different, like all the different. If you make a failure, it's your crit failure. It's just a failure. If you roll a success, it's a crit success. Like, all these little bonuses you guys get for doing shit.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think that was the first time that steady balance came into play that I know of.
Yeah.
Go fucking crazy.
Steady balance was enough that the aid pushed you over the edge.
Yay!
Hey.
Tomas is gonna look at Mika. He's like, I think I'm understanding why I prefer the mountains.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. So, taking a second to steady yourselves and get the swamp water out of your boots, Tomas,
Yeah.
you guys begin resuming your journey. Uh, so, as you're trekking through, the Feywild's a silly place.
You say that again.
You don't encounter much as potentially dangerous as the situation you just dealt with, but you notice the changes begin to get more violent as you get deeper in. Like, heading down a path, and suddenly you crest a hill, um, and it looks fine as you're climbing up, but as you head to the top and catch your foot on the lip of it, your toes bend over the edge, Tomas, and as you move your weight forward and look down, you realize it's just a sheer drop, like hundreds of feet on the other side. And as you step back down and walk around the like small hill that you climbed, it's just a small hill. It's all good.
Magic fuckery.
Tomas is just gonna like take a moment to stare into the abyss. Just like, I think I hate this place.
Miko just
What just happened?
You know, I, cliffs and not cliffs, man. Apparently, everything exists here.
Does a scrap stand exist here?
Probably at this point.
Not sure you want to snack on it if it does.
Oh right, we're not supposed to take anything from anyone.
Roll me a perception check, everyone.
Oh
Is there gonna be a scrap stand?
no.
Oh God.
Oh shit!
So Tomas, Reeves, and Mika in the distance, you just faintly hear, "Scrap, yeah, get your scrap."
Fuck, just looks up. What's a scrap?
A wonderful breakfast meal.
Oh, we should
A
go
lo-
then.
Uh,
You go right.
I can give you authentic goblin scrap when we get out of here. You probably won't like it, but it won't be from here.
Is it made with sunshine?
And rainbows.
Okay.
Zumir looks at you like you've just committed a sin. You're in danger.
I'm gonna be right back. I gotta make sure the cats are in the house now.
That's fair.
I can still hear you though.
God bless. So,
Done. If Kapak remembers this.
I don't know.
about
Does Kapak like apples?
Leshy's only consume sunshine
Oh, I see.
and magical sunny D,
I see. I see. Well,
which is
Reeves
made
is
with
gonna
literal
have.
sunlight.
Well, Reeves is gonna have a hell of a time trying to alchemically concoct that, but that's for later.
Mhm.
That is tomorrow's problem.
All right. So, as you guys progress a bit further to the Feywilds, ooh, sorry. Um, it looks like you pass through a section where, as you get up ahead, it gets a bit more mountainous than you were expecting, and you run into sheer cliffs expanding as far as you can see to the east and west. Um, and before you, as you're scanning for any options before you, it looks like the cliff is jagged. Most of the rock surface itself is made with that funny type of rock that likes to break off into like almost shards.
Shale.
Yeah. Um, so it seems like most of it is like really flaky, but either the person that is shaping this place is funny or the place itself seems to have almost a murderous, oppressive intent to it compared to what you've been dealing with before. It looks like you're almost dealing with a wall of knives stretching out before you.
Ooh.
So, while possible to climb, doesn't look like it'll be fun on your hands. Roll me a perception check.
Hell yeah.
Tomas,
Yeah.
as you are looking around a bit, you can probably climb that. It's gonna suck ass, but you can probably climb that. But as you're looking around for ways around this and to see if the terrain just cuts you a fucking break for once, um, you do notice that there seems to be an indentation of sort that seems a bit larger than you would expect given the angle that you're looking at it. And as you shift your perspective a little bit on it, it looks like there might be an entrance into the stone itself, maybe a passage through to the other side, potentially.
Tomas will just be like, oh, think we should go this way and just start walking towards it.
Quick question, Matt.
Hmm.
I for a while with perception rolls, I had a plus against lies and illusions. Was that from the Founder's Seal?
Yes.
Okay, that's not coming up anymore. It's not a worn item, it's just a held in a hand item.
Did I not? Is it not equipped anymore? Oh, very strange. The way I was setting up the rules for it might have changed.
Quite sure about that because I remember that used to be a modifier and it's not anymore.
Yeah. I will keep that in mind. That was a +1 to checking if things were magical, and you could do
Yeah.
detect magic of things you were holding in your hands.
Yeah, it's got that, and I thought it had the like whenever I usage checks, it would have like a plus against illusions, like a might have been a +1. I think you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look into how they handle that now because they changed up how modifiers work. That's why I rebuilt everything because some of them were stuck on your sheets and I couldn't find where to get rid of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep, but as far as you can tell, this is real. It's something. It's not fun, but it's real. But it sounds like Tomas found a way around.
We go move up with Tomas given the terrain.
Mm-hmm. And as you guys head towards it, you can see that it's wide enough that you guys could probably slip through without much issue, as long as you're just careful to avoid cutting yourself on the edges of the entrance. And then it opens up a bit inside of the passageway itself, and you can see the faint signs of light peeking through on the other side. It's a bit of a distance, but it looks like it does cut through the cliffside that you're currently dealing with, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
The insides of it are still rough hewn, like the outside itself, but it does look wide enough that you can pass through without too much of an issue.
Alright. Seems like stone, so Nico, go ahead and lead the way with this one with the kind of shield in hand kind of thing in case somebody else decides we look tasty.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let me check something. Okay. So, you guys are making your way through without too much of an issue. I'm just checking some things real quick. It's dark inside, but as you are passing through, you can see most of it is pretty solid around you. Uh, and as you're leading people through, maybe about halfway through, let me check these lists. Reaps.
Hello.
As you are all passing through, you feel something tap your shoulder.
Reeves looks over his shoulder.
Nobody there?
He turns back around.
Feel something tap your other shoulder.
Reeves looks over the shoulder that it didn't tap.
You have a feeling like you know what's going on, and quickly you shift your movement around to try to catch whoever's been fucking with you. Still nobody's there. You feel like this might be some sort of fey prank for a moment as you just squint and slowly turn your head around until you feel something crack against the top of your head, and you reach up to the top and notice a small little bit of blood as you realize you've been caught and you feel something there that got caught on like the wedge between where your ear meets your head, and you pick it up and see a tiny little piece of stone.
Eh?
And that's when you feel it.
Uh-oh.
Feel a little rumbling underneath your feetsies. Rumbling that seems to get louder and more pronounced as it picks up in strength, and you realize, oh right, the terrain in this place shifts a lot. We should probably not be underneath a mountainside right now.
Hey everyone. We should probably book it.
And you guys hear a thunderous rattle as the entire tunnel begins to shake, and you hear the grinding of like 1,000 blades against each other as the ceiling and the walls around you begin to collapse and crumble and rain down upon you.
So, um, how do my spells work?
What do you mean?
Um, so I used safe passage once at a fifth level, so I expended my fifth level spell slot.
Yes.
Do I still have safe passage in my third?
Um, you can cast it in any level spell slot above the level which it is learned.
Okay.
It just only gains powers at each strengthening threshold.
Okay.
Are we looking down like a straight passage, or is it?
Yeah, it's a straight passage, but it's got a couple 100 feet left to it.
100 feet.
Yeah, it's got a bit of length to it.
I have a way for me. I don't have a way for everybody.
I also have a way for just me, not everybody.
Mika's was planning on like basically sticking her shield above her head and
That
acting
is an option.
acting like an arch to help, shelter anyone who gets stuck. But I have no special things other than that.
Apparently the default at level 3 is 60 feet.
Yeah, I
Okay.
checked that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Um, if we can get towards the end, I might be able to pull that trick again. It just won't be as comfy.
All right, for the time being, let's not get caught underneath this as everybody starts hauling ass. So, if there's anything specific you guys would like to do as you're hauling ass out of here, let me know. If you are just running and doing nothing else, that is an athletic check.
I want to do that. I remembered I had after. That's mountains, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have favored terrain.
All right.
I'm going to cast this on myself, just so that I can get to the end to hold it open for everyone.
All right. So, yep, that'll definitely greatly reduce the DC, and the DC is based on your movement speed if you're just running. And I will alter it accordingly if you want to do anything to help yourself or other people.
Uh,
Uh,
You said athletics for it?
yes.
Just athletics or
Unless you're doing something fancy.
okay.
Actually, I will let athletics or fortitude saves.
Hmm.
Mika will do a fortitude. She's gonna basically move to the rear to shove the push the slowest people along, and then
Hmm.
shield them
And
from
if
getting
need
caught
be,
in
try
that
to
wind.
hold up it for just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, I'll
Between
keep that in mind.
between mountain.
Oh,
Nice.
All right. Jesus Christ. All right. Tomas, I still need a check from you. It'll be greatly reduced because you're barely running.
You said athletics or fortitude?
Yes.
The feeling when my fortitude is significantly higher.
Yeah.
Hashtag same.
Yeah, rangers are pretty good at fortitude.
My athletics, 0. Also, I don't know if it would make a penalty to him, but Kapak would be making sure Samir gets out before he does.
Baby. Alright, let me roll checks for them.
But yeah, if Reeves gets there first, regardless of when he gets there, if there are people behind him, he's going to throw up safe passage to cover the last 60 feet.
Good to note. I will let you keep that in reserve. Potentially, I'm running checks on people now.
You guys know that pitting cherries is like the worst thing in the world.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I have regrets, but I've already started.
How do you do that without ruining the cherries?
You don't. You just shove a hole through them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just hole punch the cherry, essentially. Alright. So, towards the back of the group, most of the people are fine, but you do see, as we get towards the end, excuse me, Kellum stumbles a little bit. The elven physique is good at going very fast. It is not good at going very hard. So the continual push that you guys have been going thus far seems to have weaned on him a little harder than he expected, as the ground shifts at one point and drops a little bit, and his foot catches on one of the pieces of the earth that has kind of collapsed in partially, and just sends him sprawling and sliding across the razor sharp floor as Tret doubles back to try to pick him up onto his feet, and they slowly start moving. Are you going to use your spell?
I am going to use my spell to make sure
Yep.
they get out.
Yep. All right. And Mika, you're assisting as well.
Yeah, I was gonna go. Yeah, I was hanging out rear guard to help anybody out for that and protect them. So
Give me another athletics check.
athletics this time.
All right. So, um, Reeves is able to cover most of it, but you still get in over there as you feel the area around you brace. You focus on keeping your shield up to cover them from the remaining bits of raining fragments as they manage to pull themselves free, as you feel the spell straining underneath your fingertips until the pressure from the collapsing mountainside is so great that it shatters the safe passage. And the concussive force kind of just blows the three of the people still at the tunnel entrance out a few feet and just sprawling as it just sinks until it's just ground level with you. Kellum looks a bit beat to shit. Most of you are relatively fine, other than a few cosmetic scrapes and bruises, but him and Tret took a bit of damage.
We've got a second. Miko will patch him up once we're on safe ground.
Oh, thanks for that. Let's get out of this fucking hellhole before we do anything like that.
Fair.
Which ones hurt more?
Kellum by quite a bit.
Reeves will over and slight pinch, and use his restorative solution on him.
Thanks, Adon. Alright. What's the healing on that?
Let me pull my thing up.
That would be... Okay, yeah, if you click level base healing, it'll roll.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, um, you activate the healing mechanism that you built into the crossbow, and as the searing salve of herbs is applied to the wounds, it cauterizes and sanitizes the injuries a bit. You see him wince a little bit, but just flexes his hand a bit back and forth before nodding and saying, "Probably one of the stranger things I've seen today, but appreciate it."
A mountain or this?
I appreciate that. I don't appreciate the mountain.
Oh, okay.
But he picks himself up, clasps.
No,
Okay.
Reese was asking if the mountain was the strangest thing he saw, or if it was his crossbow.
The crossbow.
Oh, okay.
Don't think I've ever seen anybody heal somebody with fire before, but props to you.
Goblins find a way.
Apparently. But he clasps Tret on the shoulder, and you guys pick it back up. So, other than dealing with a few things, a couple pixies trying to solicit you, um, another fun little bit of a ferry ride on the back of a living mountain, back of a living hill. But eventually, you guys do make your way to the wall without any more complications of particular note. And you break from the tree line to the solid earthen walls that surround the northeastern section of the tree. And you feel that sensation in your chest leave a bit as you feel your mind become a bit unclouded. Namely, Reeves, Tomas, and Kapak. The song ends for you, Kapak, and you just hear it sounds almost like a bunch of them are waving and saying goodbye to you.
Kapak just turns around to the forest and like, bye.
Oh, hey, my exorcismal dread's back.
I mean, we can always go back in the forest. That'll make it better.
No.
Oh, okay.
So, at this point, you have arrived at the roughly 30-foot walls that surround the edge of the tower. As far as you can see, no signs of patrols here, for the time being at least.
Hmm.
Hey, Zumi.
Hmm?
You told me I'd get to kill people. Are we gonna kill people today?
Yes, once we get up to wherever the commander is.
Can we just ask him to come down?
We're trying to avoid that.
We're
They
hosting him.
might call near a lot of nasty people, and the tree might get hurt in the process if we do that.
Oh, that's
We're
bad. Okay.
we're hosting a surprise party just for the commander. No one else is invited. We don't want anyone else getting jealous.
Oh, that's fair. Parties do make people really jealous.
Alright. This should be the last thing between us and the tree. And Trek kind of speaks up. I should have a grapple hook in here unless anybody has any quicker methods in mind.
Uh, where where are you where are you aiming at?
And he just points towards one of the sections. I forget the technical term for it, but no, the little jutting squares that go on the top at certain intervals.
Yeah.
Should be able to land a solid hook between that and the more steady part of the wall there.
How far up is it?
About 30 feet.
About 30 feet. Okay. Um, if you wouldn't mind, I could take it and can with Reeves with his climb speed, can he just shimmy up the wall?
Yeah.
There's probably no one around, but just to avoid the very small sound that might make, I can go ahead and latch it on for you.
Much appreciated. And he hands you the hook and the rope tied to it.
How
All right.
tall is the wall?
30 feet.
How tall is Kapak when he's huge?
Like 10 feet.
Okay.
Oh, when he's huge?
When he's huge.
12 to 15 feet.
Okay.
All right. With the grappling hook and the rope, Reeves will shimmy up the wall.
Yep. And you're able to find a spot and just hook it in there pretty good.
Cool. And he'll throw the rope down.
Unless anybody has anything specific in mind, we can slowly have people climb over the wall here. This is your free victory lap after having gone through the fuck forest to avoid complications. So, you all managed to shimmy your way over and get the rope coiled back up before hopping down the wall and making your way towards the tree. Are you guys still approaching cautiously and stealthily?
Reeves certainly is.
Yes.
All right, then I will need a round of stealth checks as you guys approach the tree. You will be following the expert if anybody is untrained.
That's good.
That tracks.
Kapak.
Yeah, especially since he's adding 20 to it.
Damn.
Hell yeah.
Tomas is in his element again now he's out of the Feywild. His brain isn't fucking filled with Fey songs.
Like, fuck the Fae.
All right. So, you guys managed to stay low and move from the outlying structures that appear to be abandoned. Roll me a perception check as you're passing through. Damn. All right. So, Kabak doesn't really give a shit. Um, but the rest of you, as you're passing through, uh, um, it looks like this was outlying defensive structures built for to house like extra guards or even just travelers passing through the area that um, didn't necessarily want to live within the city limits themselves, but still needed a place to stop and rest and recuperate before heading back out on the road. It doesn't seem to necessarily match the style of the city to the south a bit. It is, if anything, more in line to the tree itself, and that makes sense, seeing as most of them are uh, little, like almost like little hovels, little huts, made out of giant sections of the roots that seem to breach the surface for a little bit before looping back down underneath. So little like holes within the roots themselves that have been turned into shelters.
Mm.
So you're able to move between those without much issue. It doesn't look like anybody's lived in them in a long time. Um, which I suppose makes sense considering recent events. But without much complication, you guys make your way to the base of the Watchwood itself, and slowly you see this almost massive wall of bark extend upwards. Not necessarily at a 90-degree angle, as you're still at the root of it that's bending up towards the tree trunk, but you can see at a point up ahead, maybe a couple dozen feet up, where it just becomes a straight 90-degree climb up towards the sky. And as the rain beats against your back, and there's just a crackle of thunder in the distance to illuminate the side of it, you're like,
Uh,
Okay.
oh, now's the fun part.
Heavy side eyes.
Yep, and you see Callum take a few steps back before just like covering over his eyes to stop the rain from beating into it as he looks up the side of it. Yeah, it looks like a pretty straight climb. Maybe steer a little bit to the left and we should be able to make it to one of the balconies there. No telling if the door is open or not, but as lord of the city, I will forgive you if you need to break and enter into the watchwood.
Hopefully it won't come to that. I should be able to get the door open if it's locked.
Well then, the more damage we can avoid, the less I'll have to deal with angry Druids when all this is over.
Natasha look very seriously at Cal and be like, "Are you talking about hurting the tree?"
No?
No, we're talking about hurting the structures that are embedded in the tree. The tree will be fine.
That's part of the tree.
Trying to not hurt the tree.
Well, yeah, we're trying not to hurt the tree. He was just talking about. The answer is no. We're not gonna. We're not gonna hurt the tree.
Everybody a suspicious look, but like the faint outline of an axe that was starting to form in his hands is disappearing now.
Callum makes a mental note to himself.
Getting the mental image of that one meme. Like, oh, it was a joke. I see now. Puts the weapon away.
All right, so you now stand at the base of the watchwood. It's going to be a funny little climb.
Fine, little.
A couple hundred feet.
Oh, that's little.
Couple hundred feet of it climbing the side of a massive tree where you're basically trying to do that like sheer climbing where you're like digging your fingers into like flat cracks in the wall,
And it's wet.
and it's very wet.
Fuck.
So let me make a check real quick. My sweet druid son. He does not have a way to deal with that. That is unfortunate. All right. So, how would you guys like to begin climbing? Uh, I will say climb speeds will help here. They will not eliminate the checks that need to be made. Because just like you have two legs and you can walk around, but jogging still makes you a bit sore, holding your body weight up at a 90-degree angle from the wall for multiple minutes, if not like an hour, it's gonna suck ass. So, is anybody using climbing equipment as you climb up the tree? Remember, Kapak is there staring at people.
I don't have climbing equipment on me anyway, so
Wait, what do you mean Fox they're staring at people?
I was asking if you're using climbing equipment, which involves hammering stakes into the side of the object you are climbing.
Right. How long does rage last normally?
How long is what?
Rage last?
A minute.
yeah, it's not gonna.
Yeah. How suspicious would a 12-foot tree climbing a tree be?
I don't know. Depends on how many people are looking.
That's fair.
I was gonna say in this place.
Uh,
Checking if spell.
checking something real quick as well for me. That's the wrong class, Matt. There we go.
Oh, it's a shame I used my 5th level spell slot. Oof.
Is that not a baseline feature?
What?
Wild shape.
No, it's a
A feat.
wild. I thought it's a wild druid thing also.
Yeah, you pick it up a lot earlier.
Nethys is very slow right now.
Oh yeah, no, they're moving server stuff at the moment.
Oh, are they? Well, I have a use of spider climb. It will only last for 10 minutes, which is probably less than we need.
Probably even for going a few hundred feet. I don't have a climb speed. I don't know about you guys.
I have
I
a
have
climb speed.
I have climb speed.
Yeah. Without a climb speed, you move at I believe half speed when climbing.
Right. So
Um, I mean, it will mitigate some of it.
is spider climb a
Um,
single target thing or a group thing?
it's a single target thing.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure I can give it to other people because it says range touch and not self.
Yeah.
I was more thinking if one person can get up there and like drop a fuck ton of rope down or something of that sort to try and aid the others. I'm not sure if that's feasible at that height though.
I mean, I think Pot could get up there rather easily, and he could pull people up. But
The question is, do you have like 800 feet of rope?
That's the thing. I said not feasible for that length for that distance.
um,
And having the entire party hold onto a rope that is dangling from Kapak will make the DC very, very high for Kapak.
yeah.
We could just have. What's everyone's total weight?
Um,
Good question.
Tomas is 116 apparently.
Will it exceed my immovable rod?
I doubt. How much does the immovable rod hold?
Quite a bit. I would look it up if Nethys was it down. It might actually list it. Let me look at it. Uh,
Yeah, I should mention it.
oh wait, that's my old one.
8,000 pounds.
Oh, we're fine.
Uh, Only when it's activated, which means it can't be moved.
Correct.
What is your plan?
Um. We don't have all that rope is the issue.
Right.
Um.
We're just gonna have to
Okay.
hoof it, basically. I mean, we could tie it to ourselves to each other, and the lead most person has the rods. It's like,
Actually, in,
move up.
in that case, in that case, Reeves will be first in the climbing order.
Just remember, just because the immovable rod can hold 8,000 pounds doesn't mean your arms and your spinal column can.
This is true.
Using the rod as like a python kind of thing to try and help
Yeah.
people with, like everyone hooks himself onto a line of
The
it.
problem is the immovable rod is his what the hell is it called? Tripod.
Yeah.
Oh.
Can I make a reflex save to wriggle my hand out of there before the weight like breaks me?
Yeah, you can also just deactivate the immovable rod.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
It's part of your gun, or part of your crossbow. I mean.
Yeah. There's a button. It it's it it it's one of the finger wires he can extend.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So not just the rod.
hmm But yeah, if you guys want to form a chain of people and climb up, that may apply bonuses or penalties depending on how things go.
I have no other ideas for trying to find another way up or around.
Yep. It will assist. As long as not too many people fail, it will assist with giving some people some slack. But just be aware that if multiple people fail, it could drag other people down with them.
I think to start with, when they're going to start their climb, Reeves is just going to give me, Mika spider climb so they can keep up.
reduce the uh, reduce the impact of the first leg.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, or somebody else in the party who may have crappier than Mika. Any of the NPCs, I don't know how they are.
Most of them are pretty good in athletics, from what you've seen.
Okay, I mean Mika's got a high athletics, so just doesn't have a climb speed.
Yep. You're with the god of nature, another ranger whose whole gimmick is survivalism, a scout slash survivalist, and then a druid.
Okay, fair, fine.
Take
Yeah.
the spider climb.
Alright,
Shove it on.
alright. I was trying to... Yeah, push it, damn it.
Hey, Matt.
I go ahead.
Kapak's gonna spend the entire climb raging with 6-second pauses in between, so he can use his raging athlete.
So he's just gonna take a little breather every once in a while.
Yeah, he just has to every 6 seconds, or every minute he has to take a 6-second breather.
When you come out of rage, doesn't that imply some penalty to you?
Does it? I
You
don't
can't
know.
rage again for a little bit if
For
you...
6 seconds because
I
he's
have
high
to
level.
read. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're tired out or something like that. You have an exhaustion or something like that.
Actually, how loud are my blast boots?
All it says is that after you stop raging, you lose any remaining temp hit points from rage, and you can't rage again for 1 minute, which is 6 seconds because quick rage.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, you're fine then.
Okay.
Blast boots. It's hard to say if it will be covered by the deafening sound of rain. Um, the problem is you're surrounded by deafening rain that may impact the thrust on them.
Mm,
Because if you go at too much of an angle, it could extinguish one of the boots, which will not be fun for you.
mm. Okay, Reeves will just keep those in his back pocket. Well, not in his back pocket. They're on his feet in case
Yep.
something bad happens to him.
Mm-hmm. It is a definite safety button.
Yes. Okay. Well, Reeves will be first in the column unless Tomas has a higher climb speed.
His climb speed's 30.
Oh, mine's 20.
Well, if you're all tying yourselves together, you're going to be moving at like 15 feet anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yep. Phelan is not going to be tied in. I can manage on my own, but I don't think. He just looks towards Zumir and Tret and Mika. I'm not exactly built to support others' weight in this form.
Kapak's gonna tie in. Yeah, Kapak's gonna tie himself in, and he's gonna go last.
Okay. Yep. Uh, Tret will stick around the middle. He seems pretty confident in his ability to handle the climb, and he'll be looking out for other people. All right. So, as you are all getting ready, making your last minute adjustments, is there anything anybody would like to do to make final preparations before you climb? Because once you start climbing, that's going to severely inhibit your ability to make adjustments.
Kapak's gonna rage, but his plan is if anybody falls, it's an action to become huge. Would he be able to do that?
You have to try to just brace himself with a ton of weight at the bottom so that the entire line doesn't fall off and rip him with it.
And then worst case scenario, he also has his leshy reach.
Okay. Yep, he will be able to do that as a action.
Okay.
Mika will also to take any loose bits that or people want to take off into the bag of holding. Just make it easier on them to climb, less weight, less dangling bits.
Mm.
Let me check something.
I don't think her armor impedes her, but
No. Most people wear lighter armor too, so they look around for a bit and think on things, but most of them give you the affirmative that they're good. All right. So, for this first leg, as you guys are making preparations and giving an initial look over of the route, um, I will ask people to make either an athletics check to power through it, perception check to kind of plot a path, or a survival check to use your familiarity with the wilderness to look for safer spots than you would be able to necessarily just giving it a quick look over.
So that was perception, athletics,
Or survival.
or survival. Okay.
And this will be a group check because you are all tied together. And how much bonuses you get from raising athlete?
I know it gives him a climb speed.
Oh, it gives him a climb speed. Okay, I'll adjust the DC then.
Yeah. Raging athlete. You gain climb speed and swim speed equal to your land speed. The DC of high jumps and long jumps decreases. Yeah, everything else after that is just jumping, and he's not jumping. But it gives him a climb speed.
Gotcha. Okay. Then let me make some checks real quick. Okay. God bless you, Zoomier. All right. So, as you guys start making the climb, um, Phelan tells you that he's going to scout out ahead, and you just see him start making his way up, just basically swinging himself up the side of the tree without any issues, and he just is gone within like minutes. Uh, so, the rest of you begin the climb up. So, Tomas, you're getting a couple ideas for decent spots from the initial look over, but it's hard to find them within reach of the party. Um, even with you leading the way a bit. Wait, were you leading the way or were you in the back?
If Reeves wanted to lead the way, Tomas would be behind him.
Okay. So you're trying to find routes, but most of the ones you're looking, as you look back towards the group, you're not 100% sure that they can support the weight of the larger people, like Zumir, who's probably easily like 300 to 400 pounds.
Yeah.
So you you steer clear of those and give some general ideas, but you're not able to find anything that super makes the path easier. And Reeves, you're trying to find some decent steps as well with the advice from Tomas. Um, it's rough. Um, you're basically half blind doing this, not because it's necessarily dark, but you're climbing upwards as the rain is beating against your face and eyes. Um, and you're trying to find proper handholds for things, and you're making it just by barely. You slip a few times with your grip, but you manage to hold on just enough that the you don't fall off. Your hands are getting rough and sore, um, but you are able to keep going thanks to your natural affinity for climbing. Puck. you're not having much of an issue as you just kind of hyped as you realize at the top of this tree is the bad man that you need to probably throw from the tree. That sounds fair for being mean inside the tree.
That does sound fair.
Um, so you're getting the little angry bits inside of you, all riled up, getting ready to go punch a hole through the man and anybody that stands between you and him. You're vibing, making sure that you don't see, making sure that as the rain beats against your face and your sensory orbs. You're really glad that you don't have eyeballs like all the dumb humans in front of you.
Someone's like right in front of Kapak also just hears him like quietly happily muttering to himself all the things he's gonna do to the bad man at the top.
Hmm.
It's very gruesome.
Mika, uh, we'll say that Kapak is inspiring to make you move faster as you use advantage of the. Your hand has almost a stickiness to it, but you're able to peel it free with almost no effort at all. So it gives you solid grip without impeding your ability to climb up, as you're easily able to keep pace with the others. And it looks like most of the others aren't having really any issue at all, as Zumir is very careful to find handholds that some of the others aren't using as he tries to find things to support his rather large frame. But he's not having that much of an issue, surprisingly, despite his size. Uh, and unsurprisingly, at this point, Tret and Kellum are both really solid at doing the whole climbing trees thing. But this continues onward for a bit. No real struggles yet. A bit rougher in a few spots, but you're managing to push through for now. And as you climb for the first 10, 15 minutes, and you realize you're maybe about halfway up the tree, and Mika, your ability to spider climb has been lost, but despite the loss of grip, you're still holding on. You start feeling the exhaustion set into your limbs. This is rough. You're you're trying to make do because oh boy, is this probably preferable than fighting the entire garrison of Silver Order coming down upon you and potentially the commanders escaping during that process. But here and now, not a great time. You're already wet and soaking and bruised and beaten from the conditions you've been dealing with. And now the less physically inclined of you are feeling like your limbs are getting ready to fall off.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Uh, and those that are a bit more experienced are starting to feel that fatigue kick in, and you know it won't be much longer until it starts getting real hard to push through. So you try to keep up pace and don't fall into the trap you know that is slowing down at this point. There's nowhere for you to stop and rest long term, and you know that. And you know if you fall into the trap of trying to wait it out at this point, you're just going to get exhausted until people start losing their grips. So, as you guys are making the climb at this point, I need you all to make one of the following checks for me, unless you have something specific in mind. At this point, you have the routes down. You understand how the climb is going. But I need either a fortitude check to push through, a survival check to find a route that reduces the strain on you as much as possible, or a we'll call it an athletics check to rely on the stamina that you've built up over this time. So fortitude, survival, or athletics.
Well, that's not great.
Hi, Jack.
And Kapak has a climb speed when he's raging.
Yeah.
Okay. So Reeves,
Hi.
this is probably the most you've ever had to push yourself in a long time.
This is like Lana's arm day workout times like 10.
And you've been, well, not glad is the right word. You've come to have a healthy respect for the arm day.
A massive respect for the arm day.
And as
It-
you're
It's a
Sorry, go
shame
ahead.
it's a shame the arm day hasn't really benefited him super much considering his strength is still at 10.
Yeah. So you're trying to push through and you feel your hands are numb. Know that sensation. Have you ever tried to do like upper body workouts and you accidentally pushed yourself just a little bit too far?
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to come down off the adrenaline of doing the workouts and the pain is setting in.
Yeah. His
You are gritting your teeth to push through. And your
Ooh.
fingers keep slipping more and more, and you're just trying to push through. And for now, you're going to keep on going. But you still look up, and there's still maybe 100, 200 feet to go. And you curse in the goblin tongue. And hope you can make it.
Yep.
Kapak.
Yeah.
You forgot how exhausting being angry was, especially when you can't actually release the anger anywhere. Because you really want to punch a man, but not the tree. The tree did nothing wrong. The tree is perfect. You love the tree. So it is difficult. You're trying to make your way up and you're trying to get handholds, but it's getting more precarious as you're trying to avoid the parts of the tree that are old. This part of the tree has probably been around for centuries, if not millennia, and the others have been doing pretty well to carry their uh, weight pretty well. But you can see there are parts of the trees that are damaged, and you're very consciously avoiding them to prevent hurting the tree. And at one point, as you're climbing over a part, you feel part of it give just ever so slightly under your hand, and you instinctively let go before your other hand has time to grip for a second. And Mika, you just feel a weight as Kapak is free swinging behind you for a moment before he goes, "Oh, right," and just catches himself back on the tree after that. And you feel the weight lift for a moment, and you're having a bit of a struggle, Kapak.
I'm not happy. Mika, I'm not happy.
Me either, buddy.
So this is probably roughly equivalent to one of the worst days you've had at the Forge, Mika. It feels like you've been banging metal for maybe 12 hours, despite having been climbing for maybe half an hour at most. It's constant. The pressure on your upper body, your pectorals, your shoulders, your arms. All of it is sore intense, and you can feel your back tightening every time you shift your weight. And it is physically demanding, but you've come this far, and you're not gonna let a fucking tree stop you from getting done with this fucking mission and going home and just staring spitefully out at the rain for the foreseeable future because you fucking hate all of this and you just want to go home.
Yep, that tracks.
Tomas,
Yeah.
you know your strengths,
Yeah.
and strength is not one of your strengths.
No.
So as you're making your way up and you start feeling the impact get to you over time, uh, you begin being not aggressive, but proactive, making conscious efforts to conserve your strength. Not in a way that would hamper you, but being smart about the way you're climbing rather than just trying to push straight through it. And you start noticing things about the tree as you get farther up. Um, you start noticing patterns in how the bark is formed. Like there are sections where, with your thin, slender arms, you're able to get up under there and catch your full weight on it across your entire arm and like lean into it with your body, so some of the weight is better distributed across your legs to carry some of that burden for you. So it doesn't take away all of it, but it does definitely make the last bit of the climb a lot easier, which is good as you're braced in and you see Reeves struggle to reach for something for a second and his grip slips and he just falls right past your shoulder.
Oh boy.
Um,
Uh, uh, mm,
Uh,
how far up is the rest of the climb?
it's maybe about 100 feet left
Okay.
at that point.
In that case, Reeves is going to take out Skeleton Key and cut himself off of there and activate his blast boots.
All right, roll me a reflex saving throw. All right. So you go. You cut yourself loose and swing wide, and you see Sumir reach out to. Sorry, not Sumir. You see Tret reach out to try to catch you as uh, you swing a bit closer to him before you kind of just kick off the tree to go wide as you just catch your balance for a second and level your feet with the ground before blasting straight upwards towards the top. Um, and um, heading towards the balcony where you see a pair of eyes looking down at you, and you worry for a second until you just realize it's Phelan staring down at you as you just catch yourself on the balcony.
Oh god, I'm so glad I made these.
Yes, it would have been a shame for misfortune so close to the end. Good catch.
Agreed. Yes. I didn't feel like taking the whole column with me.
And you see him scan around to see if there's any movement. His ears twitch on the wind as he keeps a lookout for any change in movement around you guys as the last of you, one by one, Tomas, then sorry, Kellum and Tret and Mika and Kabak pull yourselves over the ledge. And with finally the feeling of solid ground under your feet for the first time in maybe almost an hour, take a moment to enjoy that. Because fuck that.
Hawk's gonna stand and stare very angrily at Phelan. Just stare at him.
Yes.
You said I could kill people. That wasn't killing people.
Not yet, but and his ears twitch. Soon. It doesn't sound like they know we're here. That will be
Well,
unfortunate for them.
Very unfortunate for them.
And he gestures towards the door. It is locked, but I don't imagine that'll be too much of a hindrance for someone of your particular persuasion and alliances.
Alright. Reeves will approach the door. And he's just gonna do his arcane sense for detect magic just to make sure it's not warded.
It is warded.
Great. Glad I checked. Um,
Seems important.
let's see. Can I get a sense of what's on it?
It is, I want to say, abjuration is the type of magic.
Okay.
I'm double checking real quick. is, yes, abjuration.
Okay. He'll look towards Callum and says, "All right, how advanced is your security system?"
Depending on who's been keeping the place under lock, could be anything. Most likely, it's just alarms at this level. Something to make sure they are aware when somebody tries to open up a door that shouldn't be opened.
All right. If I were to dispel this, would it trigger anything?
Seems to think on that for a moment. I can take a look. And Zumir heads over and casts a spell a bit under his breath. Looks like it's in sequence. You might be able to disable the alarm temporarily, but it'll recycle. Maybe within a few minutes. We'll just have to be cautious to head through quick and make sure it's closed before the alarm kicks back in.
Can you let me know when the cycle is about to tip over?
And you see him casting a spell for about 2 or 3 minutes goes by before he opens his eyes and nods at you. It just cycled over.
Reeves will take out his raw negation and just bap it on the door.
Is that a that's a counterspell check for the Rod of Negation, I believe.
I believe so.
All right.
Dispel magic. Here, I gotta be right back. I let the dog out.
Okay.
Okay.
Just double checking the items since we have a little bit of time. I forgot you had that.
I picked it up like so long ago. I forget when I forgot what I picked it up for, but
Mm-hmm.
I could finally use it for something.
Yep, it shoots a little gray beam out. Um, Counteract check. Okay. Roll me a flat 1d20.
It's flat.
Yeah, I'll add the modifiers to it. I'm looking them up.
Oh hell yeah!
Yep. You see the spell fizzle out, and you see it almost seems to like peel away to the edges of the door and just kind of like flicker around it like the edges of a film.
All right. And Reeves will produce skeleton key from his wrist and get to work.
Give me a thievery check. All right. So, it takes a little bit of work. Not the types of locks you're used to, but you're able to figure it out pretty quick. And after maybe about 15, 20 seconds, you manage to pop the lock and carefully slide the door open and gesture for people to head through. Just mind the film.
Find the film. Yeah. So once everyone's back in, Reeves will click the door back into place.
All right, all right. So, you guys are now standing inside of, as you guys slip through the door and take a second to make sure that's all set, you turn your attention back to where you're standing and just realize the scale of what you're dealing with. Hundreds of feet across. Just this massive hollowed out core of a tree with these huge, it almost seems like it goes on forever as for anybody that peeks over the edge, just these winding sections of staircases protruding from the side of the tree itself, occasionally breaking off into these, you know, those like mushrooms that grow out of the sides of trees, like the ones that are like half circles.
Yeah.
It's ledges almost like that, except they're made of wood rather than fungal matter. Just breaking up the staircases down at various intervals. Some of them are larger than others, but you can see they seem to be like little waypoints. Um, Either just as places that have like basic decoration set up and like chairs, benches. Some of them have carpets or more ornate sections. Some of them seem to go into the wall and have little buildings like the one that you're currently popping out of that seem to jut to the outside of the structure. Um, and throughout the core is these huge tangling masses of vines that seem to stretch down from above you. And intertwined within them every so often is these massive hulking pieces of um, it almost seems like stone, earth. Um, for the ones above you, you can see they seem to have a solid stone bottom supported heavily by intertwining roots. But as you look down from above, you can see a couple of them um, broken up into aisles and like multiple small islands at some point. Some of them are just solid hunks of stone. But you can see that the top of them seem to be covered in earth and greenery. Some of them have small sections of water that exist upon them, just almost like a series of parks. Some of them even have little structures in them, suspended throughout the core. It is a very strange setup for those of you that have never seen one, but it almost seems like somebody broke up a city and just figured out how can I stack a city on top of itself, piece by piece, within this tree. It's quite
It's
like nothing you've ever seen.
it's very strange for Reeves to see, but he appreciates the gusto of
Mm-hmm.
taking that concept and just executing it.
Mm-hmm. It is. If it wasn't done so elegantly and almost naturally, it almost has a sort of goblin aesthetic, a goblin appreciation for usage of space, making sure that every inch of this building that they could use, they are using as efficiently as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you are within the building, and it is silent, other than the sound of the water beating against the outside of the tree. Anything else that was within here is drowned out by that. But you don't see movement. And whatever lights you see are just these small little floating orbs of light, probably shedding little spheres of light around them. You recognize most of them as similar to those that would be around the observatory, little mage lights. Nothing dangerous as far as you can tell visually from them, but letting the place glow a light almost as if like covered in a natural sunlight despite where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
what would you like to do?
we say silent and like.
You don't hear anything other than the beating rain outside.
Mm-hmm.
From
All
what
right.
you were previously told by Tret, it sounds like they have maybe a couple dozen people in the facility, and it looks like it's built to house potentially thousands if need be.
Right. So it's very likely that this is empty just because it's empty.
It's empty because they physically cannot staff all
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
Alright. We're at the point where we won't have much of an option if a patrol catches us, so we might want to move quick.
Well, to tell me twice. Where's the command room?
Alright. So, you guys look around a bit, and Kellum speaks up. If they're trying to use this as the proper fortification that it is, Commanders probably hold up at the top. You probably saw the building on the way in. Big fortification at the top of the tree, nestled in where the branches part. It'll be pretty obvious once we get to the top of the stairwell. It's a bit of a climb, but sure as hell beats the one we already took to get here. So unless there are any objections, you climb. And you climb. And oh fucking boy, do you climb. It must be nearly an hour, if not more. It's not like you are. Because remember, this is a spiral staircase around the entire perimeter of this tree, and not a particularly steep one.
Goodness.
As you loop through empty platform after empty platform, you get a better view of the place. And you start seeing some of the islands in the center seem to be almost makeshift homesteads. Small little compartmentalized towns with a handful of buildings across them. Most of them look like they haven't seen direct use in a fair bit, but gives you an idea of just the sheer scale of how many people could survive here if need be. It almost looks like you get a rough idea of passing through this. If you tried, you could probably fit the entire city on the outskirts of this tower within it if need be. And yet,
I don't get.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Reeves just was going to comment. I don't get spooked too easily, but this is just effectively an empty city.
Yes, it was intended to be a shelter of sorts if need be, but we lacked the men to properly secure it from the types of threats we were facing, so we made the decision to retreat to the capital instead.
No, I know this is basically a fortress, but did it used to be pretty lively here?
It was built for capacity, not everyday use, but the Watchwoods were very popular destinations for slayers and watchmen. Those that had decided on paths that took them away from home.
Hmm.
I'm not entirely familiar with how this one was run. Let's say when I became a slayer, I took a bit of a sightseeing tour. And Tomas, you get the idea of, yeah, that's fair. If I became a slayer, I probably wouldn't want to be bunked up 5 feet from my parents so they can stop by to fucking pester me.
Yeah. Tomas like, mood. Fucking mood.
Just kind of looking around at this, like, kind of reminds me of Cindergate in a fashion. Although it
No.
doesn't look as lived in as Cindergate did. Similar vibes.
Yeah. You are always familiar with Elven cities being known for being like one with nature. This takes it to an entirely new level. But it is definitely interesting and something very few outsiders get to see. But eventually, your climb begins to come to an end. As you see, you hear the sound of rain get louder and louder, and the steps get a bit slick as you see a breach in the top of the climb that peaks up into the surface where it doesn't get brighter necessarily, as the mage lights out there aren't doing too much to deal with the oppressive darkness looming overhead from the storm. But you do feel a breath of fresh air as you breach the surface and get a view of what exactly it is you're dealing with. It almost seems like you've stepped onto the ground outside of a keep. You see the walls spreading out before you in all directions. It seems like the tree itself lands in a secondary courtyard of sorts. There's still a gate between you and the stairway, but from what you can tell, it doesn't appear to be manned.
Your nose doesn't go there.
Give me a perception check.
Reeb's too exhausted.
Yeah. Mika. It's very hard to see, but you catch just the sight of it at the edge of your vision. As you're looking around, you don't see any movement in the immediate area, and you all get the idea that maybe they weren't expecting anybody to be able to make it up through the inner defenses of this place. And Mika, you get an idea why, as you're staring around just out of the corner of your vision, you catch another discus-like building protruding from the sides of the branches that are fanning out from the top of the trunk. And you see these series of walkways, like to these buildings here, branching out between the limbs. Um, and these huge watchtowers jutting from the sides in all directions as these wooden platforms extend out, almost reminding you of like I don't know if any of you would have seen them at this point.
They're
think-
like catwalks.
Yeah, they seem almost like catwalks or maybe like shorter, wider docks. They're very strange, but they seem to jut out into nothing. But they do have like wooden bridges that branch between all of the major outposts on each limb. And you only catch the sight of one of them at first, but looking around, you sink low as you see good dozen, 2 dozen Silver Order patrolling the perimeter limbs, looking outwards for any sign of something approaching the tree.
Kind of point out the silvers and kind of try and keep back away from the mage lights that are in shadows.
Good thing we didn't try from the air then.
Absolutely. Well, seems like they're more preoccupied with what's out rather than in.
Yes. They might be a bit short-staffed for now while they're training up replacements. Who knows how many men they're planning on eventually putting in here. Let's make sure to disrupt their plans before they have any opportunities to consolidate then.
Let's get to it.
So, you guys push onward. The gates appear to be opened at the moment, as if built to allow passage freely throughout the tower itself. There seems to be an expectation that they have the area secured. Um, and you felt on the way up, Zumir has confirmed that most of the entrances, all up the entire side of the building, are built into this huge intersprawling network of alarms built to detect any uninvited intruders. Most of them are relatively concealed, but you guys have a bit of a knack for finding these things, luckily. So good roll on that secret perception check. But cautiously, you guys slip ever closer towards the keep. As Kellum mentions, not 100% familiar with the layout, but it seems relatively close. And he like ducks close to the wall and keeps close to the side. Avoid standing in the courtyard as he gestures towards the this large glass section that seems to jut out from the top of the fortification. Another one of those almost fungus-like protrusions that has just an entire curved wall of windows looking out into the courtyard, encompassing the entire area of the tree. Little lookout section there to make sure the keep can keep a proper eye on things, magically warded and all that. Let's see if we can't pay him a visit. See how many guards he kept on retainer. And you slip into the castle itself. It looks like things here are still in a bit of disarray. Uh, give me a perception check as you guys are moving through.
Reeves is still tired.
Yep. So Mika. Kapak, you would also notice that all of this seems to be in a bit of disarray. It looks like people had been hauling a lot of cargo and just kind of placing it down. It hasn't been properly sorted or organized. It's just placed where they could get it and where it's not in the way. Mika, you served in the war, correct?
Yes.
This has a very reminiscent feeling to you. This reminds you of what you saw a few times around when you were stationed in some of the reclaimed fortifications or in the areas where people were quickly moving to. It looks like they have gotten their initial supplies here and are trying to make do with it. You get the sensation that this place ain't nearly as full as they want it to be, and they're just waiting for the remaining resources, the proper supply trains to be established, and the proper number of personnel to be sent in here to turn this place into the proper fortification it should be. This place is on a skeleton crew. And you're real lucky it's on a skeleton crew, as you recall the defenses that you've been dealing with thus far. You get the idea that this might have been a real fucking problem in a few weeks.
All right. She'll relay that to the group and point out all the gear. I'm all for rather huck him over the balcony, but
I was I was having the same thought, but um, not why we're here.
right. Efficient way though if we get caught. Let's not.
Yeah,
There's a hole in the middle though.
I don't think we can resolve the situation like we did back in Embermain Hold.
No. We don't have the proper manpower to hold the fort ourselves, but we can certainly cut the head off the snake to keep them in disarray. The last thing they need is somebody well experienced in this kind of work, keeping it all well together and running smoothly. If they're disorganized, I could deal with them. But they have been oddly efficient as of late.
Don't like to
That's
sound
indeed. Let's see if we can't resolve that. And so you guys slip up to the higher levels of the fort. You begin hearing whispering in the distance. How many of you can speak Elven?
Not it.
I definitely don't know how.
Yeah, I know.
Mika's got some. Probably not super fluent, but she's got it.
Yep. As long as you can have Elven on your languages, roll me a perception check. Ooh.
Are we nearing the end?
Yes.
I'm gonna hero point it. Never.
Both hero
That.
points tonight have just been.
All right. So, Tomas, you catch on the edge of your ear that it's Elven. And this isn't something Mika would catch. You can't make out the words, but you catch the inflections.
Mhm.
And there's a certain air to it. A refined taste to one of the voices. It's not one that you recognize, but it has that distinct bite to it that only the tongue of nobility brings with it. Mika, you only catch bits and pieces of it, but you pick up the sounds of three distinct voices in the room. All of them are relatively similar. Um, one of them a more effeminate male voice, um, and a more gruff female voice. Both of those speak quietly and succinctly. And then there is a more what's the proper way to describe that? A very precise tone to it for the third voice.
Like enunciated, precise, or
Very much, very enunciated, very careful with his words, very eloquent,
politician.
potentially. They seem to be discussing. You miss words here and there, so it's hard to make out the full details. But they seem to be discussing the push eastwards. It sounds like they're trying to um, make sure there's a couple of holdout villages um, south of Oliva Alari that have been pretty heavily fortified as border guard zones. So a lot of the you hit the word Slayer, Watchers, um, another that you missed the first part of. It's hard to fully make out as the words kind of echo off the walls a bit. But it seems like a number of trained elven people have been relocating there over the past few months and fortified the location, so it's going a bit slower than they would have liked, but they need to push through that, both because the individuals that they could recruit from that region are very well trained, which would reduce the time to recruit them, but it also means they would break through the lines of the elven holdouts and mean they could reconnect with the main Brescian forces to get supplies flowing freely to their expeditionary force. So it seems like they are planning a push east, and it's hard to make out the full details as they start to get into more technical discussions, but you get the ideas that you are currently catching them in the middle of a planning phase.
Kind of back up a little bit out of earshot, or where he can't hear the whispers anymore. Kind of quietly fill everybody in. I think got three of them. They're planning a push east, so these are probably the head honchos in there. Don't know
Well,
any more, just three talking.
well, I can't I can't imagine simple rank and file would be discussing such things. If we have time, I'd be very keen on looting their desks.
Let's just make sure we deal with them first. What we're able to do after that remains to be seen. But I'm keen on gathering as much information as you guys can to remediate the situation here and elsewhere, should time allow it.
Hey, if we're able to free you up here, uh, that that'd be most preferable. That'd be most preferable to us.
they're talking about heading east and some hold out south of the Lake of Alari. I guess they got a main force out that way they're trying to connect back up with.
Callum chimes in a bit. Yeah, a lot of the Slayers relocated to that region. Wouldn't surprise me that they're having trouble putting up a fight against actual trained soldiers rather than whatever militia the villagers could offer up. No idea how long they'll hold out if they're trying to meet up with forces on the other side, though. We're not exactly trained for prolonged contact with knights of their particular expertise. We're good at strike and moving, not necessarily defending cities for extended periods of time.
Right.
Can Reeves make a sort of educated guess of what they would need to sort of like them doing what they're doing right now? Would it be enough to kind of just halt the Silver Order advance into the Elven lands at the head?
Roll me a warfare check. So, there is conflicting precedents for this, but from what you are aware of, a lot of you're not sure if it's 100% the same with the Silver Order, but a lot of precedent for other expansionary forces, various armies, and conquering populations. As strong as the individual forces are, there has to be a certain level of hierarchy in place to manage forces of a particular size, um, especially over longer distances. Even under the most ideal terms, if they have a central commander in Brescia and it takes them a month to send orders back and forth to a section of their army, it's worthless.
Right.
If they have no means to react to things, the best you can do is sit them down on a location and say, defend it, and I hope you're here when I get back. Good luck, buddy. So, cutting off the head of one of their branches of their army would essentially cripple their ability to adapt to situations. And from what you know about the Elven fighters, they are really good at guerrilla fighting and disruption. They are not good at sustained combat. So it's not necessarily a 100% chance that this will solve the issue, but cutting off the ability of the enemy forces to reliably adapt to changes in Elven strategy will mean they will have a much harder time pushing anywhere, and depending on how many forces they lose trying to conquer their objectives, if they are denied those objectives, it means they would lose the ability pretty rapidly to make any advances anywhere, at least on this front.
Makes sense.
So it's not necessarily this will wipe out the Silver Order in this area. It's you cut off the ability to actually reliably control them.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
And all right. All right, well, let's make their dealings here a whole lot more chaotic.
Indeed. So, you guys.
I'm asking. Advertise a question.
Hmm.
He would look at Callum and be like, any idea why one of them would sound particularly noble?
Did talk a little weird.
I wasn't just sure if that was I'm high and mighty better than everybody else nobility levels of weird.
Hard to say. There's hundreds of nobles from all over the Elven lands. It sounded like one of us, didn't it?
Yep.
Yes. Perhaps somebody was rubbing elbows with human forces and decided to cozy up on the wrong side. Saw a nice chance to shift their place in the world. I've met plenty of people from houses that people that actually care about remembering such things can't be bothered with. I can see a couple of them trying to get high and mighty in their boots, thinking that they deserve to be much higher in the pecking order than they are. Who knows, some of them might even have been good at controlling their men. Doesn't matter when you have 10 of them, but if given an army, might make a difference.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Question, I guess, is kill or capture?
Kellum thinks on that for a second before Phelan chimes in. Have you been able to reliably get information out of a Silver Order member previously? Tomas and Mika, your minds would flash back to the Hearthland city that you went into.
I was gonna say, wasn't that a no?
It was big, no.
A big
Yeah,
no.
that was the hero they indoctrinated. Or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mhm.
so much.
Also, they have their
Mind.
hive mind.
Right. All right.
It's too
Okay.
much of a liability. We don't have the proper means to reliably get them out of here for what I see as no potential benefit within the timeline we'll be dealing with. It's probably safer to make sure they're eliminated and can't be returned to their post.
All right. It's worth the ask. Where the edge it
Puck,
is.
Puck would also look at Mika and be like, "As promised, kill."
And kill you shall have. Let's go meet the guest of the hour. And let's shift over here. Oops. So, as you guys head into the room, the sound of whispering gets close. Are you all sneaking in? Or are you done with that at this point?
Reeves can sneak full speed, so he's just doing that.
Mika will sneak. We'll try and sneak.
Roll me stealth checks.
Oh no.
Is anybody telling Kapak to sneak?
I mean, Kapak would follow the leader thing, right?
Uh, Mechanically, he could.
Reeves will probably say something to the effect, "All right, let's keep it quiet."
Kapak would glare at him and sneak.
All right, that's a 41 from Kapak. So, uh, as you all start entering into the room, going ever so quietly, um, Tomas,
Mm-hmm.
as you're stepping in, your foot twists the carpet ever so slightly underneath your feet, and you hear just the tiniest little brush of the fine fabric across the wooden floor, and you instantly see the man's head tilt in your direction. Gotta love elves and their
Yeah.
elven hearing.
Yeah.
Well, 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 it seems we have guests. He speaks in elven only.
Marseille Bow Cups.
He's gonna look really confused at Reeves and be like, "Why do you want beans in your cup?"
No. I meant. Okay, my accent must be awful then. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We'll work on it, buddy.
Bit earlier than I was expecting, but I suppose I don't mind getting this out of the way. As he makes a gesture, and the two guards reach for their weapons at their side. And he eyes over the crowd before you see the point of the helmet stop on Phelan. Well, 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 quite the guest indeed. Coming by to pay us a visit. I had a feeling this storm was bringing something worse than rain. And you guys hear the sounds of footsteps and the sound of something crunching. Luckily, I'm not one to throw caution to the wind. And to the northeast, you guys hear the sounds of footsteps. And you see a figure approaching. As you see a
Oh
figure
no.
eating a little bit of an apple.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Uh, and you see juice dripping down the palm of their hand and through the hole in the back of it.
Oh no.
God damn it.
Mika's never run into this guy, but
Ah, nuts.
What?
That's one of the mages we ran into when we went to get Valore.
oh, that's great.
He just walks down the hallway. Did you need some? Oh, hey! Just waves at you guys.
Reeves lets
I
out
didn't
a
know
long
we were having
suffering cry.
guests. They're not guests, they're intruders. Do the job you came here for, as they reach for their weapon as well. And he kind of frowns a bit as he turns the apple over and bites the last part of it before just tossing it in the air as it just turns to dust. Aww. And just starts stretching his legs a little bit, like. Shame. I was hoping to finally have somebody to talk to. It's real boring out here.
I'll talk to you.
I remember you, though. As he looks towards you, Reeves, and you see a smile across his face.
Reeves just frowns at him and just says, I would rather be facing Dixie right now.
Yes, it's a shame. A shame what happens when you make enemies of people that don't particularly want to be, but such is life. Let's make this quick. And that's where we're gonna put an end to it.
Who the fuck is this guy? He is creepy looking.
That is Theodorus Lape, the god of transmutation.
Alright then. I never listened to that session if it got recorded.
Uh,
So one of the highlights of that was that Valore switched out this guy's heart with Wolf's.
I was gonna say, wasn't this the heart guy?
Yeah.
This was the heart guy.
That probably did not feel very good.
It did not. Not
Especially since it was full of drugs at the time now.
drugs and so yeah, he had Wolf's heart in it when Reeves pile bunkered him, and then they switched the hearts back.
Ow.
So, for those that didn't see his art before previously, both of his hands have huge holes taken out of the middle of it, but they don't seem to be impacting his physical dexterity with his fingers. Also, he is fucking cut and scarred to pieces. Like, he's got the Joker mouth scars. He's got scars above his right eye and below his left eye going down to his jawbone. Uh, the man is a patchwork of scars and burns. Um, and as he smiles at you and starts doing like warm up stretches, you see his bone structure shift and reshape underneath his flesh.
Oh, great. Get the creepy fucker. Hooray.
Hey
Kapaka.
Mika, hey Mika, did you bring the spit? Oh wait, no, it's with Reese.
Nope. Just got fire.
And you see Phelan curse under his breath.
Kapak would look at Reeves and be like, "Is that your friend? He looks kind of nice."
He's not nice, Kapak. In fact, he hates trees.
What?
And I'll show you pictures of the funny little men you're dealing with.
You felt pointy.
Also, Matt, I
Yep.
am a terrible cat mom, and Tomas would have before they came in pulled Maya from off of his like around his neck and made her not tiny.
Big Maya. Okay.
Yeah.
Where is Maya on the list?
I was gonna ask
There
about
is.
her
Oh,
earlier, but
I love these armors.
Yeah.
cool looking.
So look forward to 2 weeks from now when you guys fight Winsel the Thorn.
Thorn in our side. Two thorns in our side.
Oh no.
Davs. Yeah, their bodyguards look very pointy.
Uh huh.
So does he technically, but
When you were making the entrance, I'm like, oh no, did they somehow make a compact with like the Stag Prince, and then you showed who was coming? I'm like, oh no.
he's always just chilling. He's having a great time usually. Just like, oh man, I don't want to kill anybody right now. I wanted somebody to finally talk to. You guys are boring as fuck. God bless Theodorus. I love that man. The
God
fucking
bless him.
wreck. But yeah, you guys will deal with that. Probably a good thing you also have a god with you.
Yes. Goodness.
Himself to make himself look more pokey.
I can do it too, says Kapak.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wee.
I have to go back and listen to that recording if it's somewhere and see just how much of a fucker this guy is.
He is a silly little lad. And I gave him a proper stat sheet, because last time you fought him, he was fucking around.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
good.
yeah. That that was a very interesting fight, but it was one of those, oh god, they're against gods. It's like, yeah, total they are playing with their food right now and Reeves is upset.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think it was Reeves, Lana, and Wolf
Yep.
ran into the other three spellcaster gods, and Valore, Theodorus, and I forget the last guy's name always.
Evocation guy.
Yeah,
Victor something?
Victor.
Yeah.
Victor Gustafsson.
Valore was the one who escorted us around at the
Yep.
Demon Fortress, right? He seemed okay-ish, at least.
I mean,
Valore
maybe to
is
you.
relatively chill, but his mindset upset a few people in the party.
Hi, I'm some people in the party.
Oh,
Hi.
okay.
Valore is the god of conjuration. Theodorus is the god of transmutation. Victor is the god of evocation, and Corpse Fucker, also known as Drahaslav, is the god of necromancy.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Where'd you guys run into them at? That wasn't like the Abyss trip. That was somewhere else. You guys ran into them.
It was the trip to go pick up Valore, because Nara got clued into his locations from hints of the spells that they were working on from a previous mission. And then she's like, yeah, that's one of the people who sided with Corpse Fucker against me.
Gotcha.
Go pick him up. I have some questions, because she didn't realize he had been ascended to godhood.
Ah, okay.
And
So,
didn't it happen when we were in Hearthwaite?
yes.
Say what?
It happened when we were in Hearthwaite with Reese.
Not Hearthwaite. What was the name of the town? Knolltown.
Nulltown. Yeah.
It doesn't ring any
Um,
bells for me at
The
all.
place in the place in the Hearthlands, where you guys helped with the Silver Order trying to murder the representative coming to town,
Oh, okay.
and worked with Bitterfang and
Gotcha. Okay, I don't
all
really.
of them.
I had a different name written down, I think. Okay.
Yeah, I forget the name of the city off the top of my head, but
Gotcha.
yeah, Valore and Drahaslav are full gods, whereas it was confirmed that Theodorus and Victor only have about a half to 3/4 of the words of power for their school, so they're augmented with other bullshit.
Oh, good.
Does Nara have the others, or?
Nara, they only were able to partially retrieve evocation and transmutation from Nara before you guys freed her.
Okay.
So, from what you guys previously saw, Theodorus has a bunch of alchemical bullshit, and Victor is either some sort of like fighter or like Magus type fighter.
Oh, that's what I had Nara trapped. Okay. It's been so long that.
Yeah. They trapped Nara and tried to steal the words of power that were her domain from her, and they managed to steal like 2 complete ones and then 2 partial ones.
Okay, it's been a long time since we did that stuff.
Yep.
Fun. Okie dokie.
Yeah.
There's a
Hell
Reeve
yeah.
plotting the pictures.
But yeah, I think in the next 2 weeks we should finish both missions because the other team absolutely skated by all of the combat encounters that they could have run into by the skin of their fucking teeth. So next 2 weeks we should wrap up missions, and then on the 8th we can plan for the next round.
Hell yeah.
Whee!
Are you enjoying seeing the little signs of, hey, here's the things you avoided by coming here early?
Yes. Yes. I'm very curious on the impact the time has on the other missions that we're putting off.
Yeah.
We gotta make sure the power scale. We can't balance everything for level 17.
No, absolutely not.
We're gonna have a little bit of fun.
It's gonna go great.
Yeah. But yeah, does anybody have any questions for me? Otherwise, next session we'll have our fun little boss fight here and wrap things up.
Awesome.
That'll be on the first.
Uh, yes, the first is when we will have our next session.
3-day weekend.
We.
Oh, yeah.
I'm debating whether or not I'm going to take additional time off.